Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Roster Building 101 and talking about hoarding. We're going to talk about what materials to hoard, how does it start, what the hell even is it? Like, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about hoarding that I want to kind of put at ease and show you how even at 4 million, 6 million, 8 million galactic power, you can still be hoarding and have a lot of good resources as long as we're playing smart. And the reason hoarding is important is a lot of you, especially, some of you, I'm not going to shout out everybody, but you all know who you are, where you sit there and you're like, Phil, I'm about to get this, but I don't have anything. And a lot of that has to do with how much gear you were or potentially weren't hoarding. So let's get in here. Let's talk about this. First and foremost, let's give a shout to our channel members for their continued support. If you're ever interested, that link is down below, along with a link to the Discord server. Go check it out, guys. Thank you again for everything you've done. You are amazing people. You keep this channel going. You are a fantastic part of this community, and I'm so blessed to have all of you as a part of the Fat Phil family. So thank you again. Let's go. Let's get in here. Let's talk about hoarding. All right, so let's start off with what is hoarding, right? What actually is this? I think most people think hoarding is this process of you don't spend any gear, right? Hoarding is not that at all. Hoarding is simply saying, it's basically the same thing as saving money, right? I make $50, I spend 40, I saved 10. You could also call that hoarding, that you're trying to save gear. And normally when you talk about hoarding, it is a little bit more on the side of you're not going to spend stuff, right? Okay, like I'm hoarding for Ahsoka. But while I'm hoarding for Ahsoka, I'm still planning to take Rey Dark Vision to, BDSM Rey here. Still planning to take her to Relic 8. I'm still planning to do some other Relic upgrades along the way. Just my overall focus is keep enough resources that I can get Ahsoka Tano at the end of the day. What a lot of players do wrong is they either go too far with hoarding and they have way too much stuff by the end. I've done that. And then where I'd say most of my subscriber base is at, you don't do enough hoarding. And then you're like, I can't get the character, but because I spent all my gear getting Relic 8 Star Killer because I'm cool. So, make sure that you understand that it's just about, hey, I'm not going to be spending as much as I'm bringing in. And it can be as small as a little bit. Because you've got to think, game is, again, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So if you can save 100 Kyrotech a month, and you play for 2 years, that's 2,400 Kyrotech. All of a sudden, that's pretty freaking good, right? So how does it start, right? How does hoarding start? So it just starts with a decision, right? And it starts with a decision to say, hey, I no longer benefit from taking characters up to certain gear levels just because I can. A great example is my Armorer. I could take Armorer to gear 12 right now. A gear 12 armor doesn't really help me in the grand scheme of this game, so I'm not going to do that. But that's a decision of hoarding, that, hey, you know what? That gear isn't going to help me. I'm just going to save it. Same thing with a lot of these characters that I don't have at relics. They might sit at gear 12. I could get them to, Relic 1, but I would rather have that gear 12 gear to spend on something else. That, getting Chirrut to Relic 1 doesn't help me. Getting Jolee to Relic 1 doesn't help me. I need more relics, or I'd rather have some of these other characters for teams. So it just kind of starts with this decision that you begin to recognize certain gear levels doesn't help you anymore. That having a gear 8 character is no longer of benefit to you, so you'd rather just hang on to those Carbanis and save them for something that will help. So that's how it starts, right? And what it'll do is it starts with kind of that early gear. You'll start to see, hey, you know what? I don't need a gear 5 character, a gear 6. You slowly build into it, right? It goes from your early gear to core, to Kyrotech, to gear 12, and all the way on and on through relics. They all just kind of build on itself. That once you're in a position where you've got all the early gear you need, then it starts to get to the core gear, that you're spending that core gear, all of a sudden you don't quite need as much of it. You don't need as much Kyrotech and so on. You guys get the idea that all of it sort of, rolls, right? It kind of, shit rolls downhill, right? It's the same thing with your hoarding, that it kind of continues to build upon itself, that you're going to have so much of these things that you don't need as much. And then at times what you'll find out is that you'll get to a point where that early gear starts to become a problem because you've progressed so far in the game that you're no longer really getting it anymore because the rewards have changed or because you're not farming as many hard nodes anymore. And so then you kind of have to go back and do it. And that is, it's such a brutal thing when that happens. It drives me up a wall when like you have to go farm some random, gear 5 piece and you're like, what the hell? But I promise that, it all does build on itself, right? And again, on and on, all the way up through your relic levels. It does. Like, you'll begin to see where that horde kind of happens and you all just ended up getting stopped by, a singular bottleneck somewhere and everything else just starts hoarding up, right? So again, that's just kind of the way that they build, right? It doesn't start with, hey, I'm going to just hoard signal data. It started that you can hoard that signal data because of all these other resources that you've built up over time. So just think, I don't want you to get discouraged and think that you'll never get to a place where, oh, I've got, all these extra chirotechs. Like, the reason I'm here is because over the time, I got my core gear to a place where I didn't have to worry about it. And so then it became to focus on chirotechs. And then once I got them into a place that, that I could be at, all right, now my focus is on the signal data in other areas. So they just, again, it all builds on itself. And a lot of that is just through account growth, through, rewards and everything else. Now, you can also hoard things like Omicrons and Zetas, but here you do want to be a little bit more careful because, gear, that's fine. Normally it's not a massive deal if you're missing a single relic character that you could have, unless it's a super impactful character. But if it's like, oh, I don't have an Emphas Nest at relics and I could, all right, not a big deal. But if you have Omicrons and Zetas just kind of sitting around that you're not really, and be very careful how you word this. You're going after Jabba. You should have enough Zetas for Jabba. You should have enough Zetas for the team that you're going to run with Jabba. Similar situation with the Omicrons. You want to have all the Omicrons and Zetas you need for your current farms and maybe thinking about what's the next thing you're going to do. But don't just like hoard them to a point that you're like, I don't even know what to spend them on next. Like, I've got 62 Omicrons right now. The reason I have 62 Omicrons is because I'm saving them for when I unlock BDSM Ray. Those are saved for Ray. So I put myself in a position that by the time that I get Darkside Ray, I can equip all the Omicrons I want. Same thing with Zetas. Right now I have some Zetas to spend. Now I need to, put some on Ray, and then I've got to make sure that I start hoarding back up for GL Ahsoka. But that's kind of the logic you're going to use here, is that you only want to keep the ones that you truthfully need. Don't just build them up in your inventory to take a cool screenshot. That's just dumb, right? Kind of like I had said in my other video, it's kind of like having a really nice car with all this really cool bodywork that doesn't have an engine. Like, you took a cool picture, you can show people, but it can't go anywhere, right? Like, there's no engine, there's no purpose. So it's the same thing with your Zetas and Omicrons. We can hoard them. You just want to be a little bit more careful with these resources than necessarily your gear. Because of what the impact that an Omicron or a Zeta can have on your ability to win in territory wars, GAC, and then obviously do well in, territory battles, conquest, and other things. Now, we never want to hoard mods or mod slicing materials. And this is going to sound kind of crazy, but think about it like this. I'm going to be unlocking Darkside Ray at some point. I don't need to be hoarding mods or hoarding Zetas. Like, I can, even on like my characters like General Syndulla, these characters, yeah, we've got some placeholder mods, but I'm not really holding on to resources for them. Like, I'm not going to be hoarding all these slicing materials and calibration mats and stuff, because mods are something that can move from character to character. Like, I can move this mod to whoever I want, from Balin. Like, he doesn't have to be the sole owner of this mod. They can move around. So it's really smart that, hey, I know this set I want to build for Rey, right? I know the set I want for whatever character I'm going to be obtaining. And then what I'm going to do is maybe I'll make it better, or I'll slice up some other mods. But what you don't want to get into is this area where you have all these things saved up, because mods can help you right now. And because they can be moved around and swapped, it's better to get used to them immediately, right? It's an immediate, like, hey, this benefits me. It's not like a Zeta where I can take this Zeta off of Merrick and put it to Ahsoka or Rey. It don't work like that. But I sure as hell can do that with his mods. And that's where you can really get a lot of benefit out of your account, is understanding that it might be better to slice your mods and then just move them to their eventual owner rather than hoarding all these resources. Because who knows, maybe by having really good mods on your Merrick or your Shin, you're going to get additional holds in GAC, or you're going to get more waves in combat, combat missions, special missions, and they can be benefiting you now. Especially in some of these cases where you think, for Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano here, I'm still months from this character. And if I save all these slicing materials and calibration mats solely for her, like, they're sitting, I could have had those mods in my account now doing other things. So with mods and mod slicing materials, a lot smarter just to spend them when you get them, and then just move the mods around when you're ready to equip those characters. Now, how much to hoard, time, and all those things. So let's start with like how much. How do you know what you need to have in your inventory? So there's kind of two ways you can do this. So the one site that I like to use the most here is the SWGO Events gear, right? So gear, you just type in like gear.swagoevents.com. What you do is you'll come up to kind of a page like this. You can enter your ally code and refresh. And then what you do is you go select the journey guide. And what that will do is tell you exactly how many of each gear piece you need. So if you look at this, I need 405 fragmented, 420 incomplete, and 285 flawed signal data there. Let me move I guess I got to move the fat face so you guys can see that. See, there's the signal data pieces, there's those numbers I was talking about. That's how much of those I need, right? So then what you can do is you can go flip back over to the game, right? And I can figure out, all right, how much do I have? All right, I've got 500 white. I've got 492 green. I'm good to go on white and green signal data. And I have 460 flawed, right? I have enough blue signal data. All right. So I know that in the case of Ahsoka, I'm good to go. I can get all the stuff that I need for Ahsoka. I can spend some of this and know that I'm in a good position to still be on track for her, right? That's a big, that's a big deal, right? Let's also then, just show you guys another way to look at that is there's a, all relic 0, right? So you can select, like they've got a bunch of these different things, all relic 0. So this then would tell you, hey, here's all the gear pieces I would need to get to every character to relic 0, right? And that's pretty cool. This is a pretty cool thing, right? Like I would need 9,000 Carbonis. I'd need 5,000 shock prods. Like this, it's a pretty cool thing to look at, right? Obviously still a very long way for me to go in the game, but that's kind of the, the information that is here, right? So you can use this. I think this website's pretty good. You can also do it for swago.gg, but I was looking at this and I clicked on Ahsoka, and like you can tell this is a different number than what the events page was telling me. And the reason I know that this is not accurate, right? You guys are gonna laugh, but the reason I know this isn't accurate is because my Plo Koon, if we go to the game here, my Plo Koon is only relic 5, and he needs to be relic 8 for the journey guide. So I prefer the events page because I do think it's more accurate. I'm not sure if the SWGO page changed or something, but, I know that I'm in a position where I need that information, right? Now, like I said, how much to hoard, that's where you go. You can go to one of those sites. It'll kind of tell you, and then you can look in your account and see where you're at. So for me, I have plenty of time to spend some of the gear and things I have saved up, knowing that it's still a while before I get Ahsoka, right? In some cases, you can look at this and say, yeah, you know what? Like, I still have months before I'm ready for Ahsoka. So I have all the signal data I need. I can spend some of it now knowing I'll recuperate it by the time I'm ready for her. And then on the flip side of that, you could also be looking at it and say, man, I'm going to be getting Ahsoka in, let's just say I was going to whale, and so it's going to be like 2 days. All right, I can't really spend any of this stuff because I need more resources, right? Because I need that stuff for her now. I don't want to be spending any of it because I'm not going to really accumulate any more in the next 2 days. So that's another way that you can understand how to hoard, is just when are you actually looking at obtaining that character? if you think back to my friends Zangster and Johnny Boy, when I talked about how they missed out on the Balin event, when they're looking at their gear, they can start to plan ahead and say, this is how much I need for Shin, Merrick, Balin, etc. And then they can still go through and do other upgrades, still continue to play through the game in other areas, as long as they keep that number in the back of their head that they need, X amount of resources to finish off that character. So finally, how do you know when you can spend that gear? How do you know, yes, I'm good? So as I showed you guys, I have plenty of signal data that I need to be able to do some upgrades and do some other things. And so with this said, I, was looking at it. I'm like, all right, I should probably do Plo Koon. All right, so we'll probably be doing Plo Koon here. Just kind of finish that off. But then the other thing I was really thinking about is Ben Solo to Relic 8. It's kind of a character that's been sitting in my roster that I've really wanted to take there. And, I'm in this mood where I'm just been in a good mood lately. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish off Plo Koon here to Relic 8 for you guys in the videos. I know I used to do this a lot more, so we're going to be finishing through with this, guys. So we've got Plo Koon to Relic 8 here. Finish off these Ahsoka requirements. I should have done this earlier for galactic power purposes, but, hey. So there we go. Plo Koon now done and dusted for the GL Ahsoka event. We're rocking and rolling now, guys. We're making some hefty progress here. We can be proud of that. And then we'll go ahead and Ben Solo will relegate you as well, man. I've wanted to do that. This is a long time coming. This has been such a thorn in my side for so long. So, relegate Ben Solo. And honestly, what this gives me, guys, just to be very clear on what that does, I mean, a lot more offense, which we love to see, but I think more than anything, it's going to be additional combat missions to be able to be completed. So, again, hopefully this video helps you understand how to hoard, what resources, how it starts, and how you can use that to benefit your roster. That this way you're not sitting on resources that could be helping your account like I was here. And then on the flip side, making sure that you are sitting on enough that when you do unlock that character, you're not sitting there kind of, for lack of a better phrase, you're not sitting there with your pants around your ankles realizing that you're going to be here for another month until you get the gear that you need because you spent it doing Relegate Ben Solo because Fat Phil just did. So, let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.